Good evening. My name is Chrissy Thornton, and I am the Executive Director for the Myositis Association. It is my pleasure to join you tonight for a continuation of our May is Myositis Awareness Month TMA Empowerment Clinic series around our theme of a call to action. Tonight, we'll be talking a little bit more about creating community awareness. I love this topic. As many of you might remember, I have a good amount of experience in working for healthcare agencies as well as other voluntary health organizations that has given me the task, the opportunity, and the responsibility to build community awareness around different diseases and disadvantages. And so it's something I've come to enjoy doing. I also enjoy educating others, because as we build ambassadors who will create community awareness, it just makes our effort that much easier to have so many people equipped with the knowledge of how to build awareness and then working with us toward our mission. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the why and then also strategies around building and creating community awareness for myositis. What you'll see here is a gentleman who is clearly infirmed, and you see a list of some of the most widely recognized diseases. Some of these diseases, as you read through them, you are probably very intimately familiar with. When you look at cancer and heart disease and stroke and HIV/AIDS, most of us either have experienced some of these ailments ourselves, or we know someone in our, very close circle or family circle who has experienced these diseases. And because of that, we know a lot more about them than most people would know about myositis. Whether it's because we have a friend or a family member who has lived with, journeyed with, or succumbed to one of these diseases, or because these diseases affect such a large number of people that they are funded differently, right? And therefore have mass media campaigns, have marketing campaigns, have commercials on TV, have movies where the disease is explored. We know more about them. And so because of that, there's more compassion in the community for these diseases. There's definitely more empathy and more recognition of not only the diseases, but some of the symptoms. And these diseases are heavily funded and have really a large space in the market as far as research and the work that's being done to mitigate symptoms, to have better drug development, and ultimately work toward cures for these diseases. Well, we know that myositis is a little bit different. This is an excerpt from the infographic that we shared earlier this month that talked about the basics of myositis. So myositis, myo meaning muscle, and itis meaning inflammation, refers to several different illnesses, including but not limited to polymyositis, dermatomyositis, and inclusion body myositis. So if you are like me, you may be someone who, until you entered into the myositis community, had never heard of the disease, or until you were diagnosed, had never heard of the disease. And that is because myositis, as we know it, is considered a rare disease. In the United States, in Canada, affecting about 50,000 to 75,000 people. At present, there's no cure. We know that myositis is unlikely to go away on its own. In some instances, there can be treatment and management. And in some instances, the disease can be very much more serious. So myositis, being considered a rare disease, does not have the community recognition as some of those earlier diseases that we listed. Many people have not heard of it until they're touched by it. And it is considered a rare disease. And that means that it affects a smaller percentage of the population. What happens when a disease is considered rare is that there's often also a lack of market large enough to gain support, and therefore resources dedicated to developing new treatments, new drugs, investing in trials, having a voice and a larger seat at the table to be able to push the cause forward. A rare disease is defined as any one that affects fewer than 200,000 people. And so when you are in the rare disease world, like we are with myositis, creating community awareness is even more necessary and essential. So what is community awareness? So community awareness really just refers to what people know, right? So this says the degree that people generally know about each other, about different roles within the community, and about issues that affect the community. And so what is important to most people in the community? So we've just gone through, or in the middle of still, a global pandemic. And so the word coronavirus should be no stranger to anyone, right? Because it's something that affected everyone. It's broadly recognized. There's been so much media coverage and so much urgency around it that it necessitated resources being given to it so that it could be, so that we could develop vaccines quickly, so that we could evaluate and test and have different research efforts around it, and people are aware of it. Myositis is a little bit different, right? So we are responsible for creating community awareness. So when there is awareness of a disease and its symptoms, there are certain things that take place with that awareness, right? People are screened for it. So we're aware of, for instance, breast cancer, and there are other, annual screenings that we have, colon cancer screenings and prostate exams, and these things that people generally have because we are aware of those diseases, right? So there's increased screening that happens. When you are aware of a disease and know its symptoms, there tends to be early detection, right? Because something happens and you are familiar with the symptoms, and so you go to the doctor because you are, maybe concerned that it might be something that you are familiar with. Diagnosis, and so we know in the myositis community, it takes 5 or more years in some cases, in many cases, for people to achieve a proper diagnosis. So when there is awareness, you're able to have an earlier diagnosis. When there's disease education amongst the healthcare professionals, you're able to have an earlier recognition and diagnosis. When there's awareness, it builds support. So when there's awareness, people have empathy. So when cancer is so widely known, and we see the children and we see them without hair and we see them, sick, and it builds a natural empathy. Whether you have the disease or experienced it yourself or not, it builds a compassion because we have community awareness. When there's awareness, you're able to create mainstream partnerships. And so a lot of organizations that are dealing with diseases that affect many more people and with which many more people are familiar are able to gain support from a lot of main, for-profit businesses and organizations that also carry a lot of weight and are able to leverage those relationships to push their missions forward. And when there's awareness and a larger voice, there can be more research and trial funding and a quicker path to drug development and ultimately a cure. So this says, if members of the public are aware of a disease and its symptoms, they're more likely to take action to visit healthcare providers, right? On the other hand, if people are not aware of diseases and their healthcare options, it keeps them from taking preventative action or from visiting doctors and accessing care. So what does lack of awareness mean? Okay, lack of awareness is typically due to the absence, inaccessibility, or inaccuracy of information. Okay, sometimes that's cultural, myths and fear that can stop people from taking preventive action or seeing doctors. I know in some, nations, people tend to not get help for even the most commonly recognized diseases until they're in the late stages. Culturally, some people will shy away from healthcare treatment and providers and lean more on just faith alone, or other means of coping alone, right? Because specifically when there's a lack of awareness, people tend not to go get help until their disease has reached late stage or has worsened, right? And then that, of course, results in a lower chance of effective treatment. Okay, lack of awareness is not only dangerous in terms of worsening health outcomes, but it leads to stigma and a divisive society. So what that means is when people don't know about something, it's human nature to fear it, right? So when people see someone who may be experiencing a challenge or illness or something visibly externally, and they don't know what it is and they don't understand it, it can result in fear and shaming. It can result in the person who's experiencing the condition being isolated due to people not understanding what it is that they're experiencing. So lack of awareness overall has very extreme consequences. Whose responsibility is it to create awareness? Well, right now this finger is pointing at me, and I'm hoping as you're watching, it's pointing at you too. And the reason why my contention is that it is your responsibility is because we are living in the myositis world in a rare disease community. We're part of a rare disease community. And that means if you knew enough to click on this webinar, you are likely either connected to the myositis community, connected to the Myositis Association, or connected to someone who is. And so today's your opportunity to help us create awareness. We need everyone who's willing to talk about myositis, to be strategic about educating our community, to getting more people involved, to having more people be in the know. So if we know there's 50 to 75,000 people here in the United States and Canada, how many people are walking around either undiagnosed, misdiagnosed, because there is a lack of awareness, not just in the patient community, but in the healthcare provider community as well. So my contention is that it's your responsibility because you're here. And if not you, who? And if not now, when? So where do we start? I love talking about the power of the patient story. And throughout Myositis Awareness Month, we've been honored to have so many of our connected members tell their patient stories and to share them with you via video, which I believe has been so compelling. This says, in order to create awareness, one of the first steps is to create a compelling narrative that people care about. And how better to do that than to put yourself in front of the cause, specifically if you are a patient and able to share your story. If you're a caregiver or a care partner and you're able to share your experience, or if you're someone like me who's not directly connected or affected, but because I have made a commitment to the community, I'm willing to talk about it, to borrow from stories that I'm aware of and know, and to be a champion for this cause. So we start by a willingness to share. This says many supporters of a cause can be drawn to the efforts when we put faces on the mission. We know people are not connected to the Myositis Association. People are drawn in and connected to the members of the Myositis Association. And so they're connected to you personally. So whenever we have the opportunity to tell your patient stories and to put your face in front of the mission, to show people what myositis does, how it impacts your life, how it changes your independence, how it changes your ability to function day to day, the better we are at creating community awareness. This says it is most effective when supporters are able to humanize their experience. That means for us to share infographics and to share statistics and to share clinical data and research results is not as successful as the ability to put faces in front of the disease and to literally show people how the disease impacts people's lives. Ambassador programs is something very useful in the realm of organizations. Many nonprofit organizations like ours use ambassador programs. It says that it helps increase visibility and to educate public perception or change it through the ambassador programs. Here at the Myositis Association, prior to me, there was a program started called the Myositis Mavens. And I'm so proud of that program and glad that we've decided to keep it in place. It is a group of individuals who have decided to raise their hand at the opportunity to help the organization create awareness as ambassadors. And so throughout the year, they are hosting events, they are having interviews, they are undertaking community building awareness activities. And in their doing so, they are educating people one person at a time. They are talking about their personal stories, their commitment to our organization and to the cause. And it's such a needed component of this organization. This says equipping volunteers with knowledge and resources and encouraging them to share why they are involved goes a long way. And so if you did not know, let me tell you now that the Myositis Association has a plethora, we have a whole library, a plethora of resources and information that we can share with you digitally and via postal mail to equip you to go out into your local community and build awareness. And so if you are ready to raise your hand like a Myositis Maven, or you're ready to join the Myositis Mavens, we are here to support you with the resources to be successful in doing that. And this is a really commonly used strategy among nonprofit organizations. So we're going to talk today a little bit about steps to building community awareness. And we said starting, one of the best places to start is your willingness to tell a story, right? To be an orator about myositis. And then also to, through participating in ambassador programs, if that's an option for you, and it is here at the Myositis Association. So let's say you are ready, right? You have decided that the call to action has hit you in a way that you feel compelled to just do a little bit more, and you want to start building community awareness. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of those steps. So the first here says to choose your angle, right? The more specific, the better. And that means that we can't drink from the ocean. Have you heard that saying that, baptism by, fire, or drinking from the water hose? Is that how you say it? Drinking from the fire hose? We can't conquer everything at once. And so sometimes, even in our attempt to build awareness about myositis, we need to be very specific, right? Because I can want to educate the whole world on myositis, but it's so multifaceted. Everyone's experience is different. Everyone's pinpoints of how the disease has affected their lives is different. Their healthcare journeys are different. And so I would probably be more successful if I can choose an angle and narrow it down to something specific. This says zero it down to one part of the cause that's bothersome. Gosh, I can't imagine. I have a whole list of things that are bothersome and I don't live with the disease. So I'm sure you can make a list that's 10 times longer. But then take those issues or that particular issue that's most bothersome and make a campaign from that, right? Make that the pain point. Make that pain point the hero of your awareness campaign. So what could that look like? Well, for me, one of the things that's so bothersome is the length of time between, symptoms and diagnosis for our patients. That is a pain point for me because patients, while they are waiting for proper diagnoses, while they are waiting to encounter healthcare professionals who have knowledge and expertise in this area, their quality of life has diminished in that period of time. There's irreparable damage in some cases, health-wise during that period of time. And I think that our healthcare community needs to be better equipped and better educated so that people don't have to wait that amount of time between symptoms and diagnosis. So for me, as I create awareness around myositis, that may be my pain point. That's going to be the one issue that I focus on, that I put forward to gain the attention of other people who could probably develop some compassion for that, right? So I can't talk about everything and expect anything to stick. So this says choose an angle. And if you're specific, you will be more successful in gaining people's attention. The next thing is to set goals, okay? Knowing your goals is essential to keeping you on track, right? So if you are setting out on an awareness building campaign, you need to have some goals, because what will happen is if you don't set goals, you might start to feel ineffective, right? Because this is an uphill battle. Let me not fool you. We're dealing in a rare disease community and with a disease that most people have not heard of. And so as you set out to create awareness, you need to set goals so that you can experience success along the way. What are your short-term goals? So for me, maybe I'd like to have an article published in my local newspaper, and maybe I'd like to have the opportunity to speak to my faith community within the next 6 months. You need to determine what is it that you want to accomplish overall, right? And then what qualifies as success for you. So maybe for me, my goals are in 2021, I'm going to have that article. I'm going to have an opportunity to speak to my specific faith community. And then I would also like to hold an awareness event that brings new people in. Everyone bring a friend and we educate people about myositis. So that when I get to the end of 2021, if I've accomplished those things, I can know without a doubt that I've kept my campaign on track and that I've achieved what I set out to achieve. Okay. This says know your target audience, right? And so everyone doesn't have entry into every part of the community. And that's what makes this so wonderful, because we are dependent on everyone to be successful. And so I may be connected to the corporate community, or I may be connected to the faith community or the civic community, or I may be someone who's into professional sports, or I may be someone who knows celebrities. Wherever I can get up close and personal is where I need to start. That's where I need to identify my audience in my actions to build community awareness, because there are some communities with which I am not connected. And therefore, it would not be organic for me to walk into a community where I have no connection, where I don't necessarily have membership, and to try to build awareness about myositis. But where I do belong, where I do have membership, where I do have experience, is a unique place for me to be able to be heard. So you need to decide, as you're building awareness, who will your campaign speak to? And where can you as an individual, have the largest impact? Also, this says, what are your audience's lifestyles, attitudes, beliefs, and value systems, right? And so you're going to be more successful when you identify audiences where there are people who can relate. They may not have myositis. They may not have heard of anyone that has myositis, but if they are compassionate communities that can relate to illness, that can relate to degenerative processes, that can relate to, people who want and desire better quality of life, then those are people who share value systems with us, right? They may not have heard of myositis or experienced it firsthand, but they share our values. And so those are audiences with whom you'll be more successful. Then you want to choose your style, right? Your goal is captivation. So how do you achieve that, right? You want to work within your gift. I love that concept, right? Because I'm not going to go out and maybe I'm not handy. And so the way I build awareness is not going to be, building. Maybe I'm not, someone who's very social. So it'll be difficult for me to go out into big audiences and to network because that's not who I am organically, right? So as you choose your style, you have to think about who you are and what you are uniquely good at. Are you someone who's a public speaker? All right. Do you connect to other people when you speak publicly? I guess that's a better way to put it, because everybody thinks they are a public speaker, and Lord knows that is a skill set, right? Do you know how to speak and connect with people? When you come in a room and speak, have you affected and impacted people with your words? If you are, then that is a great style for you to use to build community awareness. You need to book every gig you can book. You need to walk up into every place you can walk up into and be heard. But if that's not you, then don't take that approach, right? Maybe you have graphic design experience and you're really great on social media. Maybe you can make some little digital flyers, or maybe you can make some little graphics that could be posted and used to educate and create awareness. And that is your lane. And so that's the style you could embrace to be really successful. See, this thing about creating awareness, it's unique to whoever's willing to do it. And some people create awareness really loudly, right? They walk in like a bull in a china shop creating awareness. And some people do it a little bit differently. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. Are you known for planning events? Are you the social butterfly? Do people normally come to your home for events, or do you plan, little social activities and stuff? Because if you are good at that and you are known for that, then when you do it, people will respond to it. So now is not the time to be brand new, right? Now is the time to leverage your experience. It's the time to leverage where you are uniquely qualified and to choose a style in which you know will be successful. If you can't string a sentence together, then you may not be the one to write the article for the newspaper. In that case, if you have the opportunity to write and submit an article to a newspaper, you don't want to let the opportunity pass you by, but you may want to partner with someone else who has that skill set. And then you want to start building your campaign, right? This is work. This is work. This is a commitment. You want to plan it out. You want to have some structure. What's it going to look like? How am I going to start? What's my messaging? What's my niche? How am I going to brand this? So you're going to create your messaging. If it's your story, great. You have to be comfortable telling as much or as little of it as you choose to tell. If your messaging is more generic and general, like this is myositis, here's who it affects, and here's why I care, that's fine too. Everybody's not going to be ready to tell the intricate details or the intimate, really, details of their myositis journey. And then once you have your messaging, you may even want to test it out. Test it out on people you love and trust. Okay, and then get some feedback. And then finalize the message you want to deliver and stick with that message. So we talked about, identifying a specific pain point. And now we're saying that once you create the messages, let that messaging, step into the room before you are. If you jump from pillar to post and change your messaging every time you step out to create awareness, you won't be connected with anything in particular, right? So we want to create the messaging, test it, commit to it, and then finalize it before you get ready to deliver it. And then you have to be creative. And some people aren't naturally creative, but there are ways that you can be creative that, when we say creative, that doesn't mean you have to sing and dance and paint and sculpt and those kind of things. But it does mean that your campaign has to come alive, so that when you tell your story, it needs to be personable, right? It needs to be engaging. When you put something out in writing, it needs to be worth reading. It needs to be compelling. When you post on social media, it has to be interesting and colorful. You have to command attention, and you have to make it memorable. And you also have to remember your own limitations. So if you get a great opportunity, I always say, just because you have a great opportunity doesn't mean it's yours to take. We definitely need to take it, but you can partner with other people to support you so that we can make sure that we maximize any opportunity that comes forward in our building of community awareness. But whatever it is, it needs to come alive, it needs to command attention, it needs to be memorable. So be creative in how you approach creating community awareness and educating others. And look at the channels that are available to you. And so old school, but still very relevant, is print. And that means newspapers, magazines, bulletins, and maybe even flyers that you might make to hand out. Many of our support groups in their different locations do create awareness at events by handing out postcards or flyers, even buttons or those kind of things. So you can actually use the opportunity for print as a channel to build community awareness. Online, website, you want to build your own landing page, using email, traditional email to send out messaging or to tell your story or to send out contacts to people to get them encouraged about being more involved. And then social media platforms, among other channels, right? But these are some that are most successful with building community awareness. Okay, and as you're going along, you are starting to come out of your shell. You're starting to talk about myositis every time you get a chance, right? You're gonna analyze and tweak, right? Because you wanna see how effective your awareness efforts are. Have you become the myositis person that everybody gets sick of talking to because every time they reach out to you, that's all you talk about and it's off-putting? Or have you become the myositis person that every time they see you or reach out to you, you talk about it, but it's inspiring and it's something that reminds them to want to do more, that you are someone that they aspire to be more like? So you have to evaluate your efforts and see how it's hitting people, and then be willing to shift and change where you need to. Where is the campaign strong? So maybe you did a social media post and it got a whole lot of likes or a whole lot of sharing and comments, and you say, oh my gosh, I did that, and that there was great response to that. And so I'm going to do more of that than I had initially planned. And then how well have you met your objectives? So my goal this year was to speak before my faith community, to have an interview, and then to do an event. Where am I in the benchmarks of hitting those goals by the end of this year? And you have to be real with yourself. Maybe life shifted and you had a whole lot of responsibilities and a whole lot of things that came up, or maybe you were ill and not feeling like doing this work. And so you have to be honest with yourself, and then also decide that, if it's not possible for your objectives that you set for yourself to be met, that it's okay, right? And that you can shift and change your goals for the year. And then identify any weak areas that can stand to be improved. So social media. Why is social media so effective? Because some of our members and some people say, I don't want to be on social media, I'm a private person. Well, you can only be so private and be somebody who is a successful community awareness builder. I tell you, I use my social media for the most part. I've used it for years as a successful fundraiser. People know that if you're my social media friend, yeah, you'll see some personal things, you'll see what's going on in my life, but that eventually I'm coming knocking on the fundraising door to ask you to support something that I'm passionate about. And it is what it is, right? I don't apologize for that. So social media is used now for people constantly on the go, right? It gives you, as a community builder, a community awareness builder, access to people who you can't see and touch every day. So on your social media, you have people from elementary school and high school. I have people on my social media I have not seen in 30 years, but some of us have become actually closer, more closely connected through commonality we found on social media than we were back when we had that, more geographic contact. So this gives you a wide audience, access to a wider audience really quickly. You can use hashtags, which grows branding. So this month we've used hashtag 2021 Myositis Awareness Month. And so if you type that into the social media browser, it will pull up every post that use that hashtag and pull them up collectively. It also is a branding tool to let people know when they see that, oh, that's what she is talking about. That's what they're talking about. And then you want to go live. Oh my goodness. Some of you might think going live might be the most, scary thing that I could have ever suggested, but going live and letting people see you and hear your voice, it has a different level of effectiveness, right? It draws people in and it helps you gain emotional appeal. Some other methods, right? Interviews. So if you can get someone, a radio show, a morning show, a newspaper, a magazine editor, someone to interview you, that's a great way to start to build community awareness, whether you're talking about the Myositis Association, myositis in general, or whether you're talking about yourself and your own personal story. Storytelling can be compelling. So I don't have a myositis story, but in the few months that I've been here, I'm putting together the pieces to be able to have one. And I'm pulling those pieces from patients in our community whose stories I've heard, from caregivers and care partners in our community whose stories I've heard, from board members I've talked to, from corporate partners whose stories I've heard. And as I pull pieces of those stories together, I am assembling my own compelling story to tell, right? And so you have to look at being able to tell a story. So if the New York Times walked in the room and you were the only one there, and they had a question about myositis or the Myositis Association, what would you be able to tell them? So you have to have something prepared, something that you can communicate. Because remember, when we asked whose responsibility it is, it's all of our responsibility. Digital campaigns. So you'll see digital pictures with maybe some facts or some personal components that you want to add in there, but digital campaigns are very effective because people follow pictures, people are find personal stories compelling, and people are using social media, right? Q&A sessions. And so this is something that many organizations use to educate and to open the door to their diseases. So would you consider, even in your own family, maybe that's a great place to start, holding a Zoom or an in-person meeting where you just allow people to come in and ask questions about your journey, ask questions about myositis, ask questions they've likely been afraid or inhibited to ask you previously. Are you willing to open the door to your disease journey or your loved one's disease journey so that you can educate people about myositis? I know for my own situation, having a child with a chronic illness, specifically in my family, there existed a lot of miseducation and misinformation about his disease. And, I had that option to let that persist or to open the door to some of his experience so that people could have firsthand knowledge of how the disease had impacted his life, my life, how the disease, what the trajectory of his disease was expected to be. And they could ask questions instead of making assumptions. So if you are bold enough and ready, hold a Q&A session. Sure, we could do it from TMA, we can open the door, but why would anybody attend a session from TMA? They don't know us, they don't know me, they don't know about myositis, but if they know you and they care about you, they have to care about all of you. And that means they care about you and your myositis, and you have a unique opportunity that we at an organizational level don't have. Okay, events and activities. What can you do? How can you pull people in, right? My favorite thing is hosting an event and sliding it in, right? Because nobody wants to come to an event all about a disease, right? No, that's not inspiring, encouraging. That's not how people want to use their free time. But if I have a wonderful event, let's say I do a girls' night out and I have, some of my closest friends come and let's say we just go bowling and go to dinner and it's great or whatever else. I don't have to overwhelm them with myositis, but surely I understand as a community builder that creates opportunity somewhere in there for me to slip some myositis in, whether it's just at the end of the night that I hand them a pamphlet and say, hey guys, I just wanted to let you know, what I'm passionate about and about this community that I'm really working to help empower and build and support, whether it's, over dinner that I mention it, whether in my storytelling about what's been going on with me recently, I mention it. There's a way to not be overpowering, but to make sure that people know what's important to you. The other thing is wearables, right? So we talk about wearing buttons or t-shirts or statement pieces that encourage people to ask more, right? What is that? What's that all about? Bracelets, those kind of things. What is how you say that? What's myositis? Yeah. So anything that we can do to encourage that conversation during events, activities, or our interactions with people generally is all building awareness. Some of this awareness we are building is going to be very metered, planned, and strategic. And some of it we're going to build just by who we are, right? Oh, hey, Chrissy, how's that new job going? Oh, it's great, right? I'm having a great time. I've been there now almost 6 months. And I could stop there, right? But why stop there and not take the opportunity to go just a step further and tell them a little bit about this community that I'm working with and about the disease that I'm positive they haven't heard of before? But what I will tell you is in my brief time here, I've had two very closely connected friends of mine tell me, oh my gosh, my mother has myositis. Both of them. Mother had myositis, never knew, never came up. So they have mothers with myositis. They don't talk about it because they made the assumption that no one knows about it anyway. They kept it to themselves. And even in our close relationship, they didn't share that, right? So no one knew. No one knew what it was until I'm here, and then they felt comfortable to share that. So make sure that as an ambassador that's creating awareness, that you are willing to create an environment where people feel comfortable talking to you about myositis, whether it's your myositis or just the fact that you're passionate about the community. And then, of course, awareness days. Make your own day. You know what? June 17th is Chrissy's Myositis Awareness Day. Who's to say you can't? Listen, the great thing about this grassroots nature of building awareness and community support is that we can do it any kind of way we want to do it. And then, as you know, nationally, May is Myositis Awareness Month. And when I tell you that we have done everything in our power to make sure that God knows during May that more people hear the word myositis, and that's what we have done and been committed to do. And many of you have been right along with us for the journey this month. Oops. So remember, creating awareness is all about advocacy. So a lot of times when people think about advocacy, you think about legislative advocacy and lobbying and talking to your representatives, but obviously there are many types of advocacy, right? And so this advocacy that we've talked about tonight is about you volunteering and giving your voice to the disease. You, when you are ready, being willing to share your journey. And there's no right or wrong way to care. I worked for an organization before, and a lot of the patients in that organization would ask me, why are there no commercials about this disease? And this wasn't a rare disease. It was just one that pretty much was stigmatized and probably not openly spoken about. But why are there no commercials? Why are there no advertisements on TV and online and whatever the case? And then one person asked me, why are there no billboards? I see billboards for St. Jude's and for cancer and for breast cancer and whatever. Why are there no billboards? And I remember I had an epiphany and I said, be the billboard. And I worked through this be the billboard, be the billboard, approach in my mind. And I realized that the voices of those in our community are louder than any commercial. They're louder and more effective than any billboard. Be the billboard, right? Be the person that's willing to shine a light on myositis, that's willing to shine a light on our need for increased funding for research and trials and drug development. Be the person that's willing to talk about the need to get to a cure, but not just a cure, the need for quality of life for people who are living with this disease right now. And because it's a rare disease, and you may be the only person that someone knows who's either working in our community or living in our community or loving in our community, someone with myositis, it is up to you. Be the billboard. There's no right or wrong way to care. And remember, building community awareness campaigns is more than just getting your message across, right? It's about creating change. This is a movement. And these awareness campaigns are meant to save the world and create measurable change. And how do we build community awareness? We do it one person at a time, okay? Because when myositis is being discussed, right? When just 5 more people know about it today and 10 more know about it tomorrow, our cause will be well served. It will open the door for increased research, education, for more healthcare professionals to have experience, for faster diagnoses, for better quality of life, and ultimately for the cure that we are all so hopeful for. So with that, I hope you feel empowered to just do a little bit more. This whole month is about a call to action. We need you. We need you. And creating and building community awareness is not just a responsibility, it's a privilege and an honor. And it's something that you can do and be super successful in no matter how you choose to approach it. So my call to action for each of you joining me tonight is to take the charge. Take the charge. Try in the next 7 days, in the next week, to create community awareness, however you choose to do so. And we love to hear your success stories here at the Myositis Association so that we can use those to empower and build confidence in someone else to do the same thing. So thank you for joining tonight. I appreciate your time with us tonight on this TMA Empowerment Clinic series focusing on creating and building community awareness. Now, let's go. Bye.